What's up, everybody? It's David Rear's 39-minute workout with David, and today we're talking about the top 4 most common squat mistakes. And because of that, you're going to learn how to do a great squat. Okay, so we're going to break down the 4 most common squat mistakes I see. I'll talk to you a little bit about how to fix some of them. They might take a more thorough training with somebody in person than you can do alone if you have a really problematic squat. But for a lot of people, just learning the tips I'm going to show you today is going to help you understand, oops, I'm doing that wrong, here's how to fix it, bam, you're better. If you have something more medically involved, which we can talk about a little bit later as the issues arise, then maybe you do want to refer out and work with a PT or chiropractor or a great trainer or something like that. But we're going to talk about the top 4 squat mistakes. Why does the squat matter so much? Okay, so the easy answer is because it's one of the 4 primary movements. It builds great strength, it firms up muscles, and because it builds strength, it's going to help you burn fat more effectively. We know from working with me, following me, hopefully, that when you build strength, you make it 10 times easier to keep fat off because you have a better metabolism, okay? So we go counter to the calorie counting, cardioholics, and we start focusing on quality food and building strength. That's what we talk about. That's the women I work with. That's what I coach them to do. So, number 1 problem with squat is your stance. Stance being too wide or too narrow. Both are problematic. So I love, for beginner clients, taking some bands and finding their perfect stance and then setting it down for them. Now, you won't have me there in person telling you how to do this, but I still think you can troubleshoot and find the right width for yourself. When you stand too narrow, meaning about as wide as my hips are, with my legs virtually straight down, you're gonna squat using really, not strictly your quads, but way too much of your quads, right? This is sort of the moguls, right? On the skis, like knees real close, and we're using a lot of quad. That's a problem because you're skipping the booty. We wanna work your quad and your booty, so you really miss out when you stand too narrow. When you stand too wide, which is more common, this is probably even more dangerous because now we're going to get the squat effect, which makes me cringe inside. One of 2 things. One is the next problem, sliding the knees forward. 2 is buckling the knees inward. Squats aren't bad for your knees, folks. Crappy squats are bad for your knees. Okay, so we want to make you squat really, really well. Now, the one thing that drives me crazy about online workouts, I see this with a P90X crowd, is they got you jumping for 60 freaking minutes when you may not even squat well. That is like heresy in the training world. It doesn't work, it doesn't make any sense. Stay the hell away from that. If you don't have a great squat, and I would say for women, I'm not kidding, minimum of a 35-pound kettlebell in front, minimum, you got no business jumping, especially for high reps, unless you're talking something like jumping jacks or what I call toe taps where you stop. Those are low impact jumps. But box jumps, something where you're jumping much higher, or a lot of plyometric jumps, hell no. If you don't have a great squat and a strong squat, stay away from that with a 10-foot pole, okay? So proper stance, we're gonna go shoulder width, okay? Maybe a smidgen outside of that, and our feet need to be straight. So if you wanna squat like a duck, that's numero uno. We wanna fix that. We gotta have you squatting shoulder width. So what are my shoulders? When I look down and draw a line from my hips, I need to be outside of that line. Once you've got what you think is about right, I want you to set something in front of your toes, okay? That's addressing my width. That's problem number 1, is too wide or too narrow. Problem number 2 is the dangerous one that I see from people who really, their body doesn't understand how to squat, which is basically if I said, hey, there's a chair behind your butt, I want you to touch it with your butt but not fall into it. It would look like back and down to the chair. What you see people who can't squat, who haven't learned the pattern of squatting, it's they slide the knees forward and their butt goes straight down instead of back, okay? This is a dangerous one because the knees are built to climb by being put in front of us, stepping up on a step, right? And then climbing. Our knees are not built to climb at this angle like this. This is dangerous for the knees. So when we squat, I want you to imagine you're pushing your butt, if you need to break it down, backwards and then downwards, okay? back and then down. And I actually have these bands. I couldn't tell till I did it. They felt a little bit too wide for me. So you want to sort of feel, there's no right, perfect answer for width. You've got to play with it a little bit, okay? So back and down. Now when somebody's really remedial, when somebody's really new and their squat is bad, I will actually put a chair or a low plyo box under their butt. It needs to be about the height of your knee, and I will actually have them reach back and touch that with their butt, because a lot of the problem with the squat is you might feel like, oh, I'm falling over. And if I put a chair there and say, okay, touch that with your butt, you now have the perception that you're safe, and so you don't fall into the chair. You know how to, right? Because your whole life you've been sitting in chairs. You really do know how to squat. You might just forget it. When I say squat, all of a sudden you're like, do it differently. So put a chair behind your butt if you're really beginner with the squat, and reach back and touch that thing, okay? So that is knees never come forward, okay? They do not pass my toes. When I come down, they gotta stay behind those toes in a good squat. Okay, so let's talk about number 3. Number 3 is depth. Depth problem usually comes from people going too shallow, although it could be too shallow or too deep. Too shallow, what you're shooting for is getting down, your butt down to your knees. It is not a squat. I don't consider it a squat until your butt is down to your knees. And so what I see a lot of people doing, and this comes from all the sort of plyo, P90X, bad jumping workouts too, is people going, hey David, look at my squat, I'm squatting, right? I'm squatting. Well, do you see the problem right now? If I'm bending my knees and squatting like that, look at the angle of my knee, not even close to 90 degrees. Until I get to 90 degrees, I'm not working my butt and my quads correctly, okay? Your goal, I don't care what your age is, what your ability is, your goal is to squat to 90-degree knee bend, okay? So proper depth is down to that spot. Now, the other issue is what we call the butt wink in the squat world, and that is people who are hyper flexible, which I pretty much am, and you can see when I get to that 90 degrees, this is good, but when I go past, you get a rounding of the lumbar, which is not happy for the spine. The spine does not appreciate that. So if you're somebody who's very mobile and you can drop to 90 but then go beyond, that is not safe for the spine. So if you start holding kettlebells in front and doing squats where you're going past that 90 degrees, you gotta watch. I actually want you to feel that spot and you go, boom, that's enough. I'm stopping right there. 90-degree bend, I'm gonna pause, come right back up. So you've got to force yourself to know where's that end point. But for most people, the issue is not deep enough. And to work on that, there's a couple drills I could teach you in another workshop. The face the wall squat, where you actually get your nose and your toes right up to the wall, and you put a belt between your feet and you try and pick that up. That's really what taught me how to squat correctly 10 years ago. I think it's a great tool, but most of the time, which is the last problem you have to address, people are so tight in their upper back that they can't actually get down correctly. Okay, so a squat, part of depth, and the problem people have is a squat, you want to have a vertical or fairly vertical spine. So this sort of drifts into the fourth problem too, which is hinging at the hips and not staying vertical. That's the fourth problem. So depth and the third and the fourth problem really have a lot to do with each other. But the depth issue, if we're going to get to that 90 degrees, sometimes it's just forcing yourself to get there. Sometimes I just call clients to it and they really are aware and they're able to get down there. It's not a limitation physically, it's maybe a work ethic thing. They got to push themselves a little harder, or just an awareness of, oh, I didn't realize I was squatting so deeply. So squat and have somebody videotape you from the side, or squat down in what you think is good and then look in a mirror to see, am I there? That's what you should be doing. But get your butt down to that. I would challenge you, if you're concerned about it, to actually put a chair behind you if you're really new at this and work to that, because that'll also teach you that, like, I'm okay, I'm not gonna fall over. That's a great tool for a lot of people to use. Don't be embarrassed if that's what you gotta do, to teach yourself how to both not slide your knees forward and how to get down, because I know you don't crash into a chair when you sit down at the dining room table. I hope you don't just go, here we go, and fall backwards. So there's no reason you can't squat down there. There's something perceived that happens when people pick up a bell and wait, and they feel that and they go, oh, that's far enough. It's like, well, I promise you can get to that spot, okay? So, what I want you to do is work on goblet squats, which is really what I just showed you. You can grab a dumbbell or a kettlebell by the handles, your hands at your throat, and your elbows are pointed to the floor. What I always say to people, your cue is get your elbows to your knees. So if you squat poorly and you don't do the right depth and you hinge, you're gonna put your elbows on your thigh. I want you to stay tall. I want you to sit your elbows to your knees. That'll do two things. Number one, it'll keep your spine very tall. And number two, it will tell you when you've hit rock bottom on that squat. So for those of you not going deep enough or going too deep, once you hit those knees, boom, you know, I got there, okay? So hold that kettlebell by the handle, elbows down, squat, boom, hit the bottom, push your head straight up through the ceiling. That's a good squat. That's got the right depth to it. Number 4 that I alluded to already is spine positioning. And this is usually the one where people have to sort of address this and fix some problems. If you are squatting by hinging mostly at your hips and pitching over and you're never getting down, your spine angle is really just showing you that something is too tight. It's usually ankle flexibility, right? Can you bend in your ankles enough to actually sit back and down? Are your hips flexible enough? And is your upper back, your thoracic spine, mobile enough to actually arch when you go down? Because when I come down in a squat, my upper back actually arches, scoops. And what we do, cow position, in cow position, right, or camel, that scoop spine that we want in cow position, that arch spine is what you want to have in there. So a lot of times, what I actually find is we blame the hips, but it's our upper back tension. I think upper back tension, thoracic immobility is the root cause of low back pain, bad squats, and upper neck pain. So I would ferret that out and deal with that big time, okay? I have other workshops where I've talked to you guys about dealing with that mobility drills and stretching and addressing that thoracic mobility problem. But what I see hold more people back than their hips is how tight they are in their spine. They do the face the wall squat and they literally cannot stay tall in their chest. They do the face the wall, right? And the wall gets in the way of their head so they can't go down and they can't open up. They can't take their back and scoop and open up enough to stay tall and rock back there. You should actually feel in a good squat like you're cramping in your mid-back, like the muscles here in your mid-back that hold you upright are actually cramping and keeping you very, very tall through that motion. So look at the squat today. I hope you learned something from the top 4 problems with the squat. It was our stance. If I'm too wide, I'm usually gonna buckle in. If I'm too narrow, I'm depending on my quads too much. Knees sliding forward. We never squat with our knees coming forward. We squat by reaching our butt back and then down like we're sitting into a chair. Number 3 was depth. Are we getting to a 90-degree bend with that knee? If we're not, then put a chair behind you, work to get down to that spot. If you're overdoing the squat, then stop yourself when your elbows hit your knees and know that's deep enough. And number 4 was spine position, right? Are we rocking forward, right? Hinging at the hips, more like a deadlift or a kettlebell swing, and coming down like this instead of staying nice and tall. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. I'd love to hear what you think your challenge is with a squat, what you're gonna do to address it. And if you need any help, ask some questions in the comments, feel free, and I will try to point you to the right videos that will really help you address that problem. I think every one of you should learn how to squat correctly so you can build the strength you want, get a firmer booty, and burn fat more effectively. You gotta have a good squat to do my workouts. It's really worth getting, okay? So thanks so much. As always, check out our T39 online kettlebell program at onlinekettlebells.com. It's a great community, easy to follow workouts for beginners and kettlebellers of all abilities. I teach nutrition, kettlebells, 39-minute workouts you can do from home. Thanks so much, folks. I'll see you next time.